A critical security flaw in VMware vCenter, one of the most widely used virtualization platforms in the world, is already being actively exploited in the wild. The vulnerability was only patched late last month. 5 days after the public disclosure, attackers started hitting systems. Within days, researchers confirmed successful compromises across dozens of countries. This is not theoretical. This is live exploitation of a 9.8 CVSS, directory-traversal bug that lets an attacker with network access execute arbitrary code. Today, we're breaking down exactly what happened, how the attack works, who's likely behind it, and what it means if you run vCenter. The flaw is tracked as CVE-2026-59310. Broadcom assigned it a CVSS score of 9.8 critical. It's a directory traversal vulnerability in the VMware vCenter server. In plain terms, an attacker who can reach the service over the network can craft requests that escape the intended directory boundaries and write or execute files they should never be able to touch. That leads to arbitrary code execution. Broadcom released patches late last month under the security advisory that covered this issue. As is often the case with high-severity vCenter bugs, the window between disclosure and real-world abuse was short. German cybersecurity firm Corso uncovered the active exploitation during an incident response engagement. They observed path traversal activity that matched the characteristics of CVE-2026-59310, followed almost immediately by the installation of a malicious cron job. That cron job was used to establish persistence with an open-source tool called reverse_SSH. Compromised systems first reached out to attacker-controlled domains on August 3rd, 5 days after Broadcom publicly disclosed the vulnerability. Corso noted that while the attackers might have known about the bug earlier, the tight correlation between public disclosure and the start of the campaign strongly suggests the disclosure itself was the trigger. Let's walk through the observed sequence. First, the attacker exploits the directory traversal flaw to gain code execution on the vCenter appliance. Next, they deploy a cron job. Cron is reliable, often overlooked, and survives reboots. The job launches reverse_SSH, which creates an outbound SSH connection from the compromised host back to infrastructure controlled by the attacker. This is a classic reverse shell pattern, but implemented with a legitimate open-source tool. Because the connection is outbound, it often bypasses firewall rules and monitoring systems designed to block suspicious inbound traffic. Corso was careful to point out something important. The mere presence of the reverse_SSH is not proof of compromise. The tool has legitimate uses. What makes it a high priority indicator is the combination of unauthorized installation, unexpected outbound connections, and execution on a vulnerable vCenter host. Corso identified 361 unique victim IP addresses spread across 47 countries. The highest concentrations were in Germany, the United States, Turkey, Iran, and France. That geographic spread is consistent with opportunistic targeting of internet-exposed or poorly segmented vCenter instances rather than a highly focused single organization campaign, though the sophistication of the post-exploitation steps still points toward a capable actor. Attribution remains unclear. Corso assesses it as the work of a suspected advanced persistent threat group, but has not publicly named a specific actor. This fits a broader pattern. VMware appliances have been repeatedly targeted by Chinese linked threat groups. One notable cluster, UNC 5174, has previously weaponized flaws in both VMware tools and vCenter for espionage. In April 2025, SentinelOne described a related threat cluster called Purple Haze. That group used a Windows backdoor named GoReshell that also relied on reverse_SSH functionality to maintain outbound command and control. The reuse of reverse_SSH is notable. It is lightweight, effective at evading inbound controls, and already familiar to several sophisticated actors. Seeing it appear again in a vCenter compromise is not surprising. It is simply consistent. While this was unfolding, another cybersecurity firm, Diffused Cyber, reported a spike in scanning against VMware vCenter that appears aimed at a second critical vulnerability, CVE-2026-59309. That bug is an authentication bypass in VMDIR, also scored 9.8. Diffused observed increased fingerprinting, version probes via the /SDK endpoint, and walks of the /WEBSSO SAMLSSO flow, coinciding with Broadcom's advisory for that issue. However, Corso's COO, Dennis Zadkowski, stated there is not enough evidence at this stage to link the scanning for CVE-2026-59309 with the successful intrusions tied to CVE-2026-59310. The forensic evidence in the cases they investigated points strongly to the directory-traversal vulnerability as the initial access vector. Those were confirmed successful compromises, not just scanning attempts. vCenter is the management plane for entire virtualization environments. A single compromised instance can give an attacker visibility into and often control over large numbers of virtual machines. The combination of a high-severity remote code execution flaw, rapid exploitation after disclosure, and the use of outbound reverse connections creates a dangerous window. Organizations that delayed patching or left management interfaces reachable from untrusted networks are the ones showing up in the victim list. If you run VMware vCenter, the first step is to confirm that the patches released late last month for CVE-2026-59310 have been applied. You should also review systems for any unexpected cron jobs, especially those launching reverse_SSH or similar outbound SSH tools. Look carefully for anomalous outbound connections from vCenter appliances to previously unseen domains or IP addresses, particularly those that began around August 3rd. Treat the presence of reverse_SSH on a management appliance as a high priority investigation item whenever it appears alongside other indicators. Network segmentation remains critical because management interfaces should never be broadly exposed. This incident is a textbook example of how quickly high-severity virtualization flaws move from disclosure to active exploitation. The technical details are not exotic. Directory traversal leading to code execution, followed by a reliable persistence mechanism, but the speed and the target make them significant. If this kind of breakdown is useful, hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment to share your thoughts. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.